Hello, this is Don't Worry, Dad'll Fix It. Today we will be doing a install of 6 new spark plugs on this BMW Z4 E85. This is an inline 6 3-litre M54 engine by BMW, and that means the spark plugs and the cylinders are all in one straight line. So the plugs will be in all in one straight line here. So the first part of the job is to remove this ignition coil cover or vanity cover, and how we do this is with a flat blade screwdriver and a 10mm socket. So the first thing you do is take these covers off, little dust covers for the 10mm nuts. So we'll take those off first. So for that you need a flat blade screwdriver. The next part of the job is to take these two 10mm nuts off, and then we can remove the cover. You'll need an extension for this, especially because you've got this tension strut in the way here. We don't necessarily want to take that off because we'd have to torque it to get it back on. So we'll take this cover off. Once you've got the nut loose, you can take the socket wrench off, and you can just do this by hand. Be very careful with this nut, as if you lose it, you'll have to order another one, because they're not a standard nut. A lot of the nuts and bolts on this car are specific to this car. Okay, that one's nearly off. Okay, so in order to get this cover off, now that we've got the nuts off, we need to take off the oil filler cap. I'm going to put the oil filler cap straight back on because I don't want anything to go into the engine after this cover's off. So the oil filler cap is now off. I'm going to gently take this vanity cover off and put it to one side. And this reveals the 6 ignition coils. And we're going to start by taking those ignition coils off to reveal the spark plugs. Okay, we'll start with number 1. So you need to sort of lift this cap here, which then sort of ejects the plug, and we'll do that on all 6 of them. Make sure the plugs are all loose here. Okay, so let's get these ignition coils off. Now, what I like to do is label these. So I have actually labeled these with some white marker, 1 to 6, starting at the front of the car. First one is off. Second one come off relatively easy for me because I've had this thing apart before. Now it may be a bit more difficult for you. So I'm not saying changing the spark plugs on every engine is the same, but it is very similar. So you can use this as a sort of a rough guide to change the plugs on your car if even if you don't have the same car. Typically an inline 6 engine, you'll have them all in a row. They'll be under one cover. I've seen some cars with other things you need to remove or take off first. So I think that's the only thing that will make it a bit more complicated. You also get some engines that are transversely mounted, so the plugs will, mainly 4-cylinder engines where the engine will be facing that way. So those are the differences there. Now, the reason we're changing these plugs is this car has done 120,000 miles. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's on the original set of plugs. Now, plugs last a lot longer nowadays than they used to, and these plugs are working fine. The engine's not misfiring. It's running smoothly, and they're all creating spark on all 6 cylinders. However, one thing to watch out for is that spark plugs do rust around the threads after a while. So you need to be careful, because if you leave them in there forever, and 120,000 miles is a long time. If you leave them in there forever, they could rust or seize into the engine. These, when I first removed them before I did the video, were relatively tight. They were quite difficult, and I had to be very careful when I removed them so I didn't break anything. So anyway, I'll carry on. I'll get these 6 out, and then we will So, oh, sorry, before I continue, what I'm using here is a spark plug socket. Now, this is a 16mm spark plug socket because we're using 16mm, the nut on the bottom of the spark plug is a 16mm nut. What makes this socket different from normal sockets that you get in a socket set is this socket is a deep socket. So the plug can fit inside it, or you can fit around the plug and go all the way to the bottom. It also has a piece of rubber in it that allows you to hold the spark plug so you can retract it from the engine. If you watch here now, as this goes in, it actually goes quite deep into the engine before it seats onto the plug. So you'd really struggle to remove it without the spark plug socket. Okay, so the first plug is loose. Again, we take off the socket wrench. We do this by hand. Just makes it a bit easier. I'm going to try and hold this plug to the camera and just show you what sort of state it's in. Okay. So as you see, the plug is in good condition, really. You know, after all these miles, it's still going well. A little bit of rust at the top. I believe the other ones are in a slightly worse state. Just put this plug to one side. Hope it doesn't fall on the floor. Okay, number 2 is coming out. Again, plug's loose. So depending on the make and type of spark plug, these are standard NGK plugs that are designated for this car. They're not expensive. These are about £8 each from eBay. So really, if you do your own spark plugs, it's really quite inexpensive to do this yourself. There's a plug number 2, also in relatively good condition, but was quite sticky when I first took it out. Okay, 2 down, 4 to go. Right, that's seated. Ooh, a bit tighter because that was torqued down. So we'll deal with the torque settings in the next part of the video when I install the new plugs. But yeah, spark plugs need to be tightened down to a specific tightness, which we call torque. And in this case, it's 30 Newton meters plus or minus 3. Okay, number 3's out. That one's not very loose. See, this one is in a bit more of a rusty state at the top of the threads there. That was quite sticky, this one, number 4, when it came out. Last 2. This is where the extension starts to come in handy here. So we're clearing the tension strut here. One more left. Okay, you should be able to go behind it here to get to this one. Very close. You can use another extension if you need to. I mean, I'll do other videos with recommending tools, but you can spend a lot on tools. But the key really is to just get tools with a good warranty. I've had this set for, I can't even remember. Got to be 15 years old. It was not an expensive set of spanners, sockets, sorry, and it came with its lifetime warranty. There we go. So that concludes the first part of the video. So we've got the last plug out of the engine. So what I'll do is, if you could look out for part 2, where we put the new plugs in and we put the ignition coils back in and we put the vanity cover back on. Thank you.